Ladies and gentlemen, mad doggy dog in the building. I'm trying my best to keep this concise, but I make no promises, right? This is all for my own entertainment. So yeah, if you like it, watch it. If you don't, I don't really give a monkeys. But um I'm gonna try and cover a number of different topics. I'm gonna try and do a review if we ever get there. But the other thing that I want to talk about is just like what a strange world it is to live in right now in this whole world of like algorithms and you know uh social media and YouTube and all that type of thing. And the whole like experience of consuming music is just I think like deserves some I suppose commentary, right? And I don't know if you guys have noticed this. If you're watching this video, there's a good chance that you have. But over the last 2 years, I feel like my YouTube has just been flooded, and flooded with like all of these videos like hating on the boy. And even since like these three albums dropped, I think most people were expecting Iceman, or most people that, stumble upon this video, but there was actually three that was dropped. The YouTube's the YouTube algorithm's just been flooded with like reviews, and like most of the ones that I see, I would say not like it has been for the last 2 years, but still most of them have been like, ah, this is trash, this is garbage, Drake's finished, da 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 da. And if like an idiot you click on the channel, you you see that this person's been making videos about Drake like almost every day, every other day, sometimes once a week. But you scroll down and it's like this person's full-time job is to make videos about how terrible Drake is, right? And like motherfucker hasn't dropped a solo project for the last 3 years, you know? So do you know what I mean? Yeah, you still devoted your life towards it. And it's like, I've even seen some videos with like a review on 6.5 hours of music, right, across these three albums that dropped like 5 hours after that. And it's like, how, how did you listen to 6.5 hours worth of music and record a review in 5 hours? Like, and it really just makes you think that in a world of social media and YouTube and whatever, you might have thought that like big corporations have less control over like what mass populations think. But I'm not sure if they do, especially not in this world of like AI and whatnot. And I might be saying too much. I don't end up getting like, I don't know, kidnapped or whatever, right? Um, but you'd have to think a lot of this stuff is like a hit job, man, because like I don't think that there's people that like ha you know have enough time in the day to just produce like videos every single day, just like targeting somebody. Um, and I don't think it's possible to listen to 6.5 hours worth of music and then actually consider it and then record a review in like less than 6.5 hours. It doesn't make any sense. Um, but then the other thing that I think I'll address is that like there is genuinely a lot of people out there who like genuinely hate Drake. Do you know what I mean? And in a way, I kind of get it, right? And in a way, I don't. So the part of it that I get is that music's a very subjective, um, emotional experience that often is tied to people's identity, like lots of things are, right? And I think with hip hop music in particular, with its origins being what they are, um, it very much speaks to uh, an underdog, overcoming type of journey, right? Or narrative. And so like hip hop being like what 52 years old, right? Being dominated for about like depending on where you want to start the clock here, 16, 17 years, you know, you're knocking on a third of hip hop's existence that Drake's been like the number one commercial. commercially speaking, right? The number one artist. And so like you don't have to be the smartest man in the world to see that, okay, like that doesn't really sit well with an art form that was supposed to have been about the underdog. Do you know what I'm saying? You like hip hop's the kind of um like art form where you always want to see the next thing coming through. You always want to see someone challenging the king. Like it's very much like a hierarchical, like lineage-based sort of order in hip hop that you don't necessarily have in other genres, right? Like, do you know what I mean? You're not saying like, like people aren't talking about like Bon Jovi and Springsteen still like in a competitive way, you know. Um, and so, like, from that angle, I kind of understand it that, like, it's not cool to be a Drake fan. Do you know what I mean? It's not cool to be a fan of the person that's been dominating for 16, 17 years. It's not cool for someone that's like, you know, like, has ruled with an iron fist for, like, you know, uh, somewhere between like 30 to 35% of an art form's existence, right? Um, and like being a contrarian is cool, being somebody who doesn't like conform is cool, especially in hip hop, right? And so that part of it I get, but I just don't necessarily get the the time and emotional investment that it must take because like some of these videos are like from real YouTubers. They're not just like voiceover and then like imagery. There's like people in front of a camera and like these people, like you see how emotionally invested they are in their hate and then like you think to yourself like why are you making a video about somebody that you genuinely dislike? You know what I'm saying? And it's like when I click on your channel, why have you been doing it like every other day for the last 2 years. Do you know what I mean? It's like 500 videos on this topic, fam. Like, we get it. And it's almost like one of those things where, like, when people used to tease you when you would like say how much you hated a member of the opposite sex, and it's like, yeah, maybe like you fancy her. Do you know what I mean? Like that's why she's always picking on you or vice versa type thing. And I do think that maybe that's a thing as well. I do think like as the saying goes, like the haters are just your biggest fans, and it's like if you stayed up till like like there's people literally with bags in their eyes, right? Because they're like in the UK and they've stayed up all night. The music dropped at like 12 o'clock, which is like 5 a.m. our time. And then they stayed up till like half 11 or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So they've basically not slept. And you can see the bags in the eyes with the reviews, right? And it's like, this is garbage. It's like, bro, you stayed up all night. You stayed up all night, fam. You stayed up all night. You watched the live stream. Then you streamed like 3 albums and now you're doing a recording just to tell us that it's garbage. You're like, come on, bro. So I think it's like it's also a monetary thing. I think like there's people that just make videos for a living and like hating on Drake is cool and that's gonna get clicks and clicks is gonna mean money and money means that my rent gets knocked out and my girl stops screaming at me and I can afford the baby formula that's just been going up in price. And so yeah, it's a combination of all these different things, right? I think that there's a lot of AI, there's a lot of just like human like hater psychology, and there's a lot of like people just need to pay the bills, and this is, do you know what I mean? This is what does that. But anyway, enough of all that analysis. What do I think, right? So out the 3 albums, the main one that I'm interested in as a hip hop fan is obviously Iceman, right? And I'll probably speak to the other two, but I'm gonna start with Iceman because there's, like I say, that's my main genre that I'm interested in, and I'm really about the bars. I really like to unpack the bars and the double meanings and like the subliminal shots and all that type of stuff. And given the subject matter that the boy is addressing here, you know, it's pretty much just like all about that, or at least 80% of it is. And so I guess I'll start off by saying, I'll just put one final put. I know, I know, I'm not getting to the point here, but I just want to put one final preface before I give my opinion, which is that um, whilst music is subjective, there's certain things that you can say that can, you know, be objective, namely, which is to like just disclose one's biases, right? So when I disclose my biases to say that I'm very partial to bars, to double entendres, triple entendres, I like listening to rappers throwing in subliminals and mixing it up with some more obvious like shots at people in the industry. Like I like listening to rappers talk about how they're the shit and no one can touch them. You know, like I'm not really about the whole socially conscious rapping, which might seem like a strange thing to say, but and that's a whole different topic, you know, that could warrant its own video. But I'll just try and say very quickly because in 2026, like rap is not the art form if that is really what you are about. You know, if you're really about your social consciousness stuff, you know, like any mainstream news media is gonna roll out the red carpet for a rapper that wants to really put their thoughts out there for scrutiny. And not only uh can they, but you know, there's evidence of that, right? And like every rapper that wants one has a podcast, and it's so easy to do, you know, and there's so many other rappers that have podcasts. And so it's interesting to me that the so-called socially conscious ones are the same ones these days, not back in the day, right? But these days, the so-called socially conscious rappers are the same ones that don't have a podcast. They're the same ones that don't go on mainstream news to articulate their socially conscious worldview and put it up to scrutiny, you know. And in my opinion, the reason they don't do that is because it's a grift, you know. It's just a persona. It's just something that they put on, and that's their shtick, right? But when Public Enemy were doing it, it was because, you know, people of hip hop culture didn't have access to go into mainstream news media and articulate their worldview. You know, there was no such thing as the internet in the way that we have it now. There was no social media, there was no YouTube, there was no podcast. Do you know what I mean? So I respected the fact that they were using this medium to express their views in music, right? But today to be doing it, like your socially conscious worldview doesn't need to rhyme. I mean, like, there's really no requirement for it for, you know what I mean, for oppression to rhyme with suppression. Do you know what I mean? Like, like you could just go onto a podcast, you could go onto a Rogan or Lex Friedman or, you know, a CNN or a Fox News, and they would roll out the red carpet for any like, you know, socially conscious rapper. So in 2026, I don't really respect or interested in anybody who's fucking rhyming about socially conscious issues. I think like you're a fucking moron and a grifter, to be honest. Um, but okay, we went on a tangent there. But the reason I come back is to say I like people that rap about success. I like people that rap about being the best. I like people that rap about, you know, people hating on them. Like that, I could fucking listen to that all day. Do you know what I'm saying? Because that's motivation to me. I'm not really about the victim rap. Like I like listening to like Kendrick when I'm trying to do something difficult and I'm feeling sorry for myself, you know, but I don't like go back and listen to it again. Do you know what I mean? To be honest, like I really like that Mr. Morale and the Hot Steppers album because I was trying to put together a bed. Do you know what I mean? And it was one of those like IKEA style bed. It wasn't from IKEA, but it was that type of jam where you have to like do it all yourself. And it's difficult, man. Do you know what I mean? Because especially when doing it dolo, like you've got like a million different pieces and like the instructions don't make sense and you know then I can't find this particular bit that I need and like do you know what I mean? And then that's like you know, I haven't got one of those automated drill things and it's like this is difficult, boom, like stick some victim rap on in the background. Oh, the whole world's against me, da da da. And then I get my bed done. You know what I'm saying? But like, am I listening to that again? No, fuck no. Do you know what I'm saying? So I say all that to say that I fucking love this shit. Do you know what I mean? Iceman was just well, it just ticked every box for me. It ticked absolutely every box. I thought the production was incredible. I thought the bars were nuts, you know, and I'm one of those rap fans, and there's a few of us out there that have been waiting for a Drake album where he's just barring. It's not about, you know, the sing-song stuff. And I've often had the thought, like, why doesn't he just drop like separate albums? Like, put all that fucking girl shit on one, you know, I know there's girl rap fans as well, but like I'm talking, look, you know, law of averages here. Put the girl stuff on one album and give the dogs. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I thought For All the Dogs was going to be. You know, the title was a little misleading, but and this Iceman really delivered. I'd say there was only really one track that comes to mind where I felt like you could have fucking dropped that off the album. Really, that didn't need to be there. There's only really like one skip that immediately comes to mind for me. And that's the one which was about ASAP Rocky and Rihanna, I'm pretty sure, called Burning Bridges, and where he's talking about your baby mama didn't post a single. Like, if anything, that felt like a skit, that felt like an interlude, that felt like something that could have just been like, you know, 40, 50 seconds long, and he's just singing that, you know, along with his boys, your baby mama didn't post a single, you know. Um, and yeah, that didn't really need to be there. But, you know, joints like Firm Friends, joints like I mean, there was four Make Thems. Do you know what I mean? There was like Make Them Cry was the opener, bars, Make Them Pay, bars. Make Them Remember was essentially the timestamp record. I think that leaked beforehand and they called it 1 a.m. in Albany. But on the album it was called Make Them Remember. And and then 18 the last track Make Them Know. Like all of those and Firm Friends as well. Th like those five joints were just straight bars. Do you know what I mean? There was no hook, there was no singy songy, and I felt like some of the wordplay was just incredible. I mean, off the top of my head, I love the Dr. Dre this is, do you know what I mean? If Drake pulled out the AK, he'd probably go to jail. Um, and just remove the letters from my name and it will reveal or something along those lines. And so yeah, if you take the AK out of Dre, um, and yeah, I mean, if Drake did beat up his girl like Dr. Dre did, you would have gone to jail. You know what I mean? And you look into Dr. Dre's history, there's a lot there that you could have gone to jail for, you know. So I don't know what it is about these aftermath boys, but yeah, they like putting their hands on their women. Um, and yeah, there was, I mean, shots for everyone, you know, shots for Cole, shots for Jay. It's gonna be interesting to see how that works out. You know, I felt like he gave Jay a couple of subs, but he didn't want to empty the clip on Jay, um, which is understandable, just you know, given who he is with Rock Nation and whatever. But also the fact that, you know, Jay's gonna be dropping later on this year. Um, and and I wouldn't be surprised if Drake's keeping his powder dry for him. Do you know what I mean? Like so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But in terms of the beat production, the ones that really stood out for me were like, I mean, I got a lot of favorites on here, but track three, Whisper My Name, that is just some catchy shit. Like I've been listening to the instrumental and like I just can't get that beat out of my head at all. And then Janice STFU, like that beat is crazy as well. I think they're both Boy Wonder beats. And with Janice, it's like the second half of it. There was parts of that that were previewed in one of the episodes, or the Iceman episodes, and they've monkeyed with it, and like in some ways I like the old way better, in some ways I like this bit better. But the way they put that whole song together, it kind of feels like a bit of a mishmash of three different songs, but it's incredibly listenable. Um, and yeah, there there's some there's some there's some there's some bars in there where you think to yourself, he must have put the finishing touches on this really quite late. Um, and it makes you wonder, when did they film the video? Because like bars like how many interviews you gonna do to try and get Ice to chill, you know. Um, which is a cool little flip, a cool little double meaning there. But everybody's been doing these interviews. Like you've seen Rick Ross out there, like apologizing, talking about how he wants Drake to shine, etc. That ain't what you've been saying for the last 2 years, fam. That ain't what you've been saying at all, you know. And so yeah, I mean, he's clearly been like working right up until the deadline. But yeah, both of those joints, like tracks 3 and 4, the Janice and Whisper My Name, were crazy. The Future track, Ran to Atlanta. Um, you know what? First time I heard that, I thought it was okay, but I thought it was a little formulaic. Um, you know, in case you're sitting here waiting for the criticisms. Um, I thought it was a little formulaic, and I thought that, as I feel with any Drake and Future track, right, it's very much about the vibes, but I feel like the bars are a little bit lacking. Do you know what I mean? And as someone who's like a bar head, I always feel like, mm, but as someone who's lived in Florida, which what I mean, and I think like the Florida, like like the Orlando and like Atlanta music scenes, I don't think they're a million miles apart. Do you know what I mean? Like Georgia and Florida, like share a border, they're both the South. Um, and like it's a different vibe, if you're off an age where you're kind of going outside, it's not New York. Do you know what I mean? They're not all about the bars, you know, it's very much about the vibes, but it's different when you're listening to it in the car. Like first time I listened to it was like just in my drum, right? And when you're in the car where you can really turn the bass up, and you got that kind of like, do you know what I mean? Cocoon, if you will. Like, yeah, that hits hard. That hits hard. But I still feel like I would have liked the bars to been a little bit better, especially Drake's second verse, just when he's seen the joint out. I felt like it weren't as clean as, do you know what I mean? Drake's execution that we've come accustomed to, and also on this album itself. Um, so yeah, there was that one. Burning Bridges, I didn't think needed to be on there, the ASAP one. National Treasures is sick, right? But it's just that one already kind of leaked, and I know they added some to the end, but it's like the original National Treasures Drake verse is just fucking incredible, right? And I just wish that they hadn't leaked it early, because I think if people were hearing that for the first time, you know, it's scary hours for the haters. Bees on the Table is a vibe, that's a nice vibe. I mean, Drake's talking some real shit on there, you know. Um, and I really I like the fact that he dressed the lawsuit, where he says, "I'm fighting the man, not suing a rapper. You boys aren't listening." Um, I feel like he could have unpacked that a little bit more, because some people are genuinely stupid, right? And some people, okay, stupid is harsh, but some people don't really have familiarity with how, like big deals work, right? When you're dealing with like hundreds of millions, and I don't know how big deals on that scale work either, but I do know how like corporate deals work, you know, in when we're talking about ends. You know what I mean? I don't know about bees, but a lot of people don't know about either, right? And so and so like a lot of hip hop heads, they hear about lawyers getting involved and they think like you're doing something wrong. You know what I mean? Um, but it's like in business, like deals go wrong, like, in any form of business, right? And like lawyers get involved. It's really not that big of a deal. But in rap, you have a lot of these like bollocks notions, right? And rappers are always lying about their life, right? And I don't think like maybe the average rap fan, not to sound condescending, really understands like how business works and the rap and lawyers are involved in everything. Do you know what I mean? And like, but I guess like you can't fully unpack your legal strategy and make it known to your record label on a track that you're releasing. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, maybe I'm being a bit harsh there, but I think like just making that point that I'm suing my record label, I'm not suing Kendrick, do you know what I mean? And I'm not suing them for the fact that they let this track come out. I'm not suing somebody for a diss track. I'm suing them for collusive business practices, right, which are illegal, full stop. But especially given that, Drake is of the belief and his team of the belief that these were targeted at a time where his contract was up for renegotiation, which it was. Do you know what I'm saying? So when you remove the copyright on your music, and allow content creators like reactors or podcasts to get paid off the music, you're essentially bribing them. Do you know what I mean? And as a record label, your job is to monetize the music, not to let other people get paid off it. Do you know what I mean? So like you have a fiduciary responsibility to your shareholders to not do things like remove the copyright. Do you know what I mean? The only reason why you would do that is A, right? The only time it's ever been done is for brand new artists that don't have a following, right? Not like multiple Grammy Award winning artists, right? You might remove the copyright on a new artist because you kind of want to incentivize reactors or podcasters to say, "Oh, been listening to this music, it's awesome, da 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 da," and they don't mind playing it on their channel because they know it's not going to get demonetized, right? So I get that for new artists, but you know, when you've got two established artists in a rap battle and you remove the copyright for one and not the other, that's because you're trying to cook the books. And in America, there's a federal law for that called payola. Like you're not allowed to pay journalists or pay reviewers or incentivize them or give them a cut off your profits just to say that it's good. Do you know what I mean? And so to do that in the middle of a rap battle, right, is an act of defamation. Now, I felt like he could have done a bit more in the raps to educate people who, don't necessarily understand like contracts. But hey, I'm nitpicking. Do you know what I mean? It might not have done any different. It might not made any difference. Or maybe it's coming, at a later date and they kind of want to see some progress in the case before he kind of like raps about it after he's won or something like that, if he does indeed make any progress with the appeal. Um, Plot twist was a vibe. What did I miss is obviously the world has heard that for a year now. I do think that's another one where it's like if the world hadn't already heard it would have rung off. Too hard for the radio. I mean, with that, you're obviously paying homage to like Mac Dre and like that whole kind of California style. Um, you know, if I'm honest, like it's a very catchy tune, but I felt like if you were gonna do that, you should have probably done that earlier. Do you know what I mean? Like during the battle when Kendrick dropped Not Like Us, I did think Drake could do this and probably do it better, right? But 2 years in, I don't know whether it's gonna have the same desired effect. We'll see. It's a catchy ass tune. There's obviously some controversy in there with the island hopping. Now your name's got redacted. you know. And now we got a fact check, which is interesting because no one wanted to fact check, whether Drake had actually done anything wrong. And he went on no lists. But yeah, I get it. I get the strategy of it. I just don't know whether it's, too little, too late, to do whatever he thinks, it was gonna do. Um, but then yeah, when we get into the back end of the album, Make Them Remember, like I say, that was the timestamp record. Um, just bars on bars on bars, it was crazy. Um, and then like Little Birdie, Don't Worry, I don't really remember too much about them. I think Little Birdie had some crazy 40 production on there. Um, and Firm Friends was the conductor beat, and again, just the bar work was incredible. And same with Make Them Know. So as a lyrics fan, honestly, I feel like I because like with some of my favorite Drake verses, I feel like even after I'll play it like God knows how many times, I'll still be discovering like a different double meaning in that. And clearly it's not just me because when you look at the charts, like Drake's albums are just living on the charts. Do you know what I mean? I think he's got like maybe 7 albums in the top 100 even before these three dropped. So, I mean, the charts are going to look crazy in a week from now because like he could very well like have maybe and even if some of his other albums start to get a uh a sympathy effect, do you know what I mean? Like new listeners come into the fold and start streaming his old stuff. You could be in a situation where Drake owns like 10% of the charts. Do you know what I mean? Like out of the top 100 albums, like very conceivably 10 of them could be Drake albums, right? Um, but the point I guess I was trying to make is that like Drake albums never leave the charts. Um, and when you look at things like GNX, which everyone was so quick to call a classic, I think last time I checked, which was a couple of weeks ago, it was like 97. It was about to fall out of the charts. Do you know what I mean? Out of the top 100 at least. Um, and yeah, and Drake had like 3, 4 albums, maybe even five, above GNX in the charts, and he hasn't dropped a solo project in 3 years. So, like, the staying power is just incredible, and I think like this is gonna be one of them ones. This is gonna be one of them ones where like you know, even with like Scorpion and the one that came out before that, that had like the gigs joints on there, and people saying, "Oh, why is he talking in a Jamaican accent? Why is he talking in an English accent?" Like, do you know what I mean? Lord forbid like artist wants to shine a light on different genres. Lord forbid the artist wants to experiment. Do you know what I mean? Like if the artist does the same thing, you say he just does the same thing. If he experiments, then he's a vulture. Do you know what I mean? And it's like I don't know which one of these fucking artists, whether it's like Popcorn or Vibes or Gigs. I don't know which one of those artists that people think like were somehow doing Drake a favor. Like, like it wasn't like Drake wasn't already the biggest artist in the world. Like, I'm pretty sure in Jamaica and in London, like people had already heard of Drake. Do you know what I'm saying? But yeah, there was a lot of people in the States that hadn't, heard of vice versa, right? So yeah, that type of hater logic has never made any sense to me. But even artists like even More Life, that's the album I was trying to think of. Even like More Life, right, which everyone like hated at the time. Even that shit still streams in the top 100, like ahead of GNX. Do you know what I mean? That only came out like a year ago. Um, so yeah, it's interesting, like just the whole like dichotomy of it, and this, like I say, the psychology of it all, because like the the streams are saying one thing, right? And like the narrative is the complete opposite. Um, and even when they like cut out all the fake streams and the bots and whatever, and you saw all these artists just get slaughtered, right? Losing like hundreds of millions of streams, like losing like tens of, or not tens, but losing like millions of active listeners on Spotify. Like Drake's numbers haven't changed. Do you know what I mean? If anything, his numbers have gone up since they've, cut out all the bot schemes. Um, so yeah, man, I really think it's scary hours for the haters, but salvation could be found for them in because what kind of language is that? Because there was two other albums. One was like an R&B album, which is HABIBTI, and the other one, I guess, is kind of like a catch-all pop type album, which is Made of Honor. And there's some 80s type beats on there, a lot of Weekend-esque type of material where he's kind of encroaching on Weekend's territory. And there's some kind of dancehall inspired joints on there as well. But it's very much like outside music, right? Um, there's a whole different demographic of Drake fans that are not me. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of like female Drake fans, there's a lot of um like the kind of music I suppose that gets played in places like Saint-Tropez or Mykonos or Tulum, where like these types of like places aren't, they're not ringing out hip hop. Like it's not the early 2010s, do you know what I mean? As much as I wish it was. Um, in big 2026, like a lot of these like high-end party places, they're not bringing out hip hop anymore. Do you know what I mean? And so I think like he knows what he's doing, where he's trying to just basically cover all the major bases. Like he's kind of got his pop angle, he's got his um, you know, like dance music, like high-end dance music type of bougie club angle. He's got his like R&B girl fans that want to play music in their bedroom whilst they're doing their makeup and their nails and trying on their dresses and having sleepovers with their friends and drinking wine, do you know what I mean? And eating chocolate. And then he's got Iceman for the real hip hop fans, right? Um, and yeah, I mean, just for the sheer work ethic of it, I was like chatting to my barber, right? And he was telling me like Drake's got like 20 albums. And I was like, no, no, no. He's like, he's got like nine. Do you know what I mean? He's got like nine solo albums. And then he was like, yeah, but what about like if you count everything? And I thought, oh shit, yeah. So like if you count these three that you just dropped, like we're already at 12 in terms of solo albums. And then there's four collabs. Do you know what I mean? And so you got the collab with Party, you got the collab with Future, you got the collab with 21, you got the Young Money album, um, and then there's like four mixtapes. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean it's nuts really. Um, and it might actually, if you count Honestly Never Mind, do you know what I mean? Like the dance album, which I don't really count, but um, it might even be more than that. Um, in like 16, 17 years. It's nuts to be honest with you. So yeah, that's a mad rant, but I'll say if you're a real rap fan, yeah, and you didn't enjoy Iceman, honestly, I have to be honest and say I don't understand it. The only way I could understand it is if like you you're letting your dislike of a person or an image or a persona, that it's not like any of us know, right? Um, affect your objective analysis of the music and the lyricism. And I feel bad for you, to be honest, because you're missing out on some incredible bars. Um, and yeah, so that was my take. Let me know what you guys thought.